Have you ever wondered why teenagers often make decisions that go against their better judgment? It's a question that's puzzled many, and the answer often lies in the realm of peer pressure. This invisible force can push young people towards actions they might not naturally gravitate to, such as experimenting with drugs, indulging in alcohol, or engaging in early sexual activity. These are serious issues, each carrying its own set of implications. So, let's dive deeper into these topics and unravel the truth. Peer pressure, a term you've heard before, but what does it really mean? In the simplest terms, peer pressure is the influence exerted by a peer group, encouraging individuals to change their attitudes, values, or behaviors to conform to group norms. It's like that niggling feeling when your friends are all doing something, and you feel compelled to join in, even if it's not something you'd usually do. Often we link the idea of peer pressure to negative influences, but it's important to note that it can also be positive. However, in the context of our discussion today, we'll focus more on the negative aspects of peer pressure, especially in relation to drugs, alcohol, and sexual activity. Now let's imagine a scenario. You're at a party, your friends start passing around a bottle, or lighting up something you know isn't a regular cigarette. You don't want to partake, but you also don't want to be the odd one out. That's peer pressure. It can make teenagers especially feel like they have to conform to fit in, to avoid judgment or rejection. This can lead to risky behaviors and decisions that might not have been made otherwise. It can override personal judgment and the knowledge of what's right and what's wrong. Peer pressure is a powerful influence, but understanding its effects is the first step to overcoming it. Remember, it's okay to say no, and it's okay to be different. The most important thing is to stay true to yourself and make decisions that align with your values and beliefs. What happens when teenagers give in to peer pressure and start experimenting with drugs? A question that reverberates through the minds of many. To answer this, let's first delve into the physical consequences. The immediate physical effects of drug use can range from mild to severe, depending on the substance and the quantity consumed. These can include changes in heart rate, blood pressure, and even brain function. Over time, continued use can lead to serious health problems like heart disease, lung disease, and cancer. And let's not forget the potential for overdose, which can be fatal. Now let's talk about the mental effects. Many drugs can alter a person's thinking and judgment, leading to health risks, including addiction, drug driving, and infectious diseases. Drugs can also affect areas of the brain that control motor function, causing coordination problems, paranoia, and even aggression. Imagine the impact on a teenager's life, a time when they're still growing, still developing, still figuring out who they are. Drug use can stunt this growth, both physically and mentally, but the impact doesn't stop there. The emotional consequences can be just as damaging. Drugs can cause feelings of euphoria, but they also have a darker side. They can lead to feelings of anxiety, depression, and isolation. These feelings can then feed into a vicious cycle of continued drug use as a way to cope. And then, there's the potential for addiction. Addiction is a long-term effect that can take hold before a person even realizes it. It's a chronic disease that can affect a person's life in profound and devastating ways. In other words, it's not just a phase or something that can be easily shrugged off. The decision to try drugs can have life-altering effects. It's not just about the here and now, it's about the future as well. It's about the person you want to become, the life you want to lead. Remember, the power to choose lies within you. Choose wisely, choose healthily, choose life. Alcohol, often seen as a harmless social lubricant. But is it really? Let's take a moment to ponder on this. Alcohol in moderation can indeed serve as a social glue, bringing people together in a relaxed environment. But when it comes to teenagers, the story can take a different turn. The teenage brain is still developing, a process that continues well into the mid-20s. Alcohol can interfere with this growth process, affecting areas of the brain responsible for learning and memory, decision-making, and impulse control. So, what happens when a teenager gets behind the wheel after a couple of drinks? The result can be catastrophic. Drunk driving isn't just a dangerous behavior, it's a deadly one. It's a risk that no one should ever take, especially not a teenager with their whole life ahead of them. Now, let's shift gears a bit and talk about the potential for developing an alcohol addiction. You see, alcohol has a sneaky way of wrapping its tendrils around you before you even realize it's happening. And for teenagers, the risk is even greater. Early initiation of drinking is associated with a higher likelihood of developing alcohol dependence later in life. The harmful behaviors associated with alcohol don't stop at drunk driving or the risk of addiction. There's also the potential for risky sexual behaviors, violence, and even suicide. It's a domino effect of potential consequences, each one more severe than the last. And then there's the impact on school performance. Alcohol can cloud the mind, making it harder to focus and retain information. This can lead to poor grades, missed opportunities, and a potential derailment of future plans. Alcohol isn't just a drink, it's a decision that can have far-reaching consequences. For teenagers especially, it's a decision that should be made with the utmost care and consideration. So next time you find yourself at a party, remember this. Alcohol may seem like fun and games, but the consequences are far from it. What about sex? It's a topic often shrouded in mystery and misinformation. And it's this lack of clarity that can lead to some serious risks when it comes to early sexual activity. You see, when we talk about early sexual activity, we're not just discussing the act itself. We're also delving into a world that might include sexually transmitted diseases, also known as STDs, and unplanned pregnancies. These are two potential outcomes that can drastically alter the course of a young person's life. STDs are infections that are passed from one person to another during sexual contact. They can lead to discomfort, serious health complications, and in some cases can even be life-threatening. And what's more, they are more common than you might think. In the United States alone, there are nearly 20 million new STD infections each year, many of which occur among young people. Unplanned pregnancies, on the other hand, can lead to a range of challenges, both emotionally and practically. They can impact education, career prospects, and can even result in financial strain. It's a life-altering event, and one that should ideally be planned for, not stumbled upon. But it's not all doom and gloom. There are ways to mitigate these risks. Safe sex practices, like using condoms, can significantly reduce the risk of STDs and unplanned pregnancies. Regular testing for STDs can also ensure early detection and treatment. Then there's consent, a critical aspect of any sexual activity. Consent is a clear, unequivocal, and voluntary agreement between participants to engage in specific sexual activity. It's something that should be respected and upheld at all times. And let's not forget, sex isn't a race. There's no need to rush into it. It's a personal decision, one that should be made with careful consideration and mutual respect. After all, your body is your own, and you have the right to decide what happens to it. Sex is a personal decision that should never be influenced by peer pressure. It's about understanding the risks, making informed decisions, and above all, respecting yourself and others. So how can teenagers navigate these pressures and make informed decisions? Well, the first step is communication. It's essential to have an open dialogue with someone you trust, whether it's a friend, a sibling, a parent, or a counselor. Share your thoughts, your fears, your conflicts. Remember, it's okay to ask questions, to seek advice. You're not alone in this journey. Everyone experiences peer pressure, and many people around you have walked the same path. Next, it's about self-awareness. Knowing yourself, your values, and your boundaries can make a world of difference when faced with peer pressure. It's about understanding what you are comfortable with and what you're not. It's about not being afraid to say no when something doesn't align with your values. It's about standing up for yourself and what you believe in. And then, there's the art of critical thinking. It's not just about making decisions in the moment, but about considering the long-term effects. If you're faced with a choice to drink, to try drugs, or to engage in sexual activity, take a moment to think. What could be the consequences? How might this choice impact your future? It's crucial to weigh the pros and cons before making a decision. Lastly, never hesitate to seek professional help if needed. If you're feeling overwhelmed by peer pressure, reach out to a counselor or a mental health professional. They can provide strategies to cope, to understand your feelings, and to make informed decisions. In the end, it's about believing in yourself and your ability to make the right decisions. It's not easy to stand up against peer pressure, but it's a skill that will serve you well throughout your life. Always remember, it's your life, and you have the power to shape it. Don't let peer pressure dictate your choices. Instead, let your choices reflect your hopes, not your fears. Remember, the power to make the right decisions lies within you. Don't let peer pressure dictate your choices.